Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a coin you might have lying around in your pocket, sitting forgotten in an old jar, or tucked away in a drawer, could be worth $34 million? Yes, you heard that right. $34 million for a simple dime that most people wouldn't even think twice about spending on a pack of gum. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait. This is the real deal. And today we're diving deep into the extraordinary world of the Roosevelt Dime 2001D, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, but hides a fortune that could make you wealthier than you ever dreamed possible. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a 10-cent piece be worth millions? Well, stick with me because the answer is going to blow your mind. And trust me, you'll want to hear every single detail because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and how to spot this treasure if it's hiding in your collection. The Roosevelt Dime 2001D has been recorded at values reaching up to an absolutely staggering $34 million in the collector's market. And before we dive into why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, let me tell you something that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The coins we're covering today get even more incredible as we go along. So if you think $34 million is mind-blowing, just wait until you hear what's coming next. But I'm not going to reveal those values just yet because the suspense is part of the journey, and you're going to want to stick around to discover just how much higher these values can climb. Now, let's talk about the Roosevelt Dime 2001D and why collectors, investors, and coin enthusiasts around the globe are going absolutely crazy trying to find one of these in circulation. The year 2001 was a significant time in American history. A year marked by tremendous change and historic events, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that little D mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation, just like they do every single year. But here's where things get interesting. Among those millions of ordinary dimes, a handful were struck with errors so rare, so unique, and so desirable that they become the holy grail for serious collectors. We're talking about errors like off-center strikes where the die didn't align properly with the planchet, creating a coin that's dramatically shifted and shows only part of the design with a blank crescent on one side. We're talking about double dies where the image was stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghostly doubling effect on Roosevelt's profile, the torch, the olive branch, or the oak branch on the reverse. We're talking about wrong planchet errors where a dime design was accidentally struck on a quarter planchet or even a foreign planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely wrong in the best possible way for collectors. We're talking about broadstrikes where the coin was minted without the collar that normally holds the planchet in place, resulting in a dime that's wider, thinner, and has no reeded edge. And perhaps most incredibly, we're talking about triple or quadruple strikes where the coin went through the minting press multiple times, creating overlapping images that look almost abstract but are worth a fortune to the right buyer. Each of these errors is rare on its own, but when you find one from 2001D that's in pristine, uncirculated condition with sharp details and minimal wear, you've struck gold. Or should I say, you've struck $34 million. The story of how these error coins escaped the mint is fascinating in itself because the United States Mint has incredibly strict quality control measures in place, with multiple inspections at various stages of production, automated scanning systems, and human inspectors whose entire job is to catch errors before they enter circulation. But despite all these safeguards, mistakes happen. A die cracks after thousands of strikes, and nobody notices immediately. A blank planchet from a different denomination gets mixed into the hopper. A coin jams in the press and gets struck multiple times before anyone realizes. Or an inspector simply has an off day and lets something slip through that should never have made it past the door. When these errors make it into circulation, they're like needles in a haystack, mixed in with hundreds of millions of normal coins, spent by people who have no idea they just handed over a potential fortune, deposited into banks, rolled by machines, and distributed to stores and businesses where they change hands dozens of times before someone with a keen eye finally notices something's not quite right. The Roosevelt Dime series itself has a rich history that makes these coins even more special to collectors. The design was introduced in 1946, just 1 year after President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death, as a tribute to the man who founded the March of Dimes and led America through the Great Depression and most of World War II. The obverse features Roosevelt's profile facing left, designed by Chief Engraver John R. Cynic, whose initials JS appear near the truncation of Roosevelt's neck, a detail that actually caused controversy at the time because some people thought the initials stood for Joseph Stalin, which is absolutely ridiculous, but shows you how conspiracy theories have existed long before the internet. The reverse shows a torch symbolizing liberty flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence. A beautifully symbolic design that's remained essentially unchanged for nearly 80 years. By the time we reached 2001, the Roosevelt dime had been in production for over half a century, with billions upon billions minted, which makes the error specimens all the more remarkable because they're so rare among such massive production numbers. Now, here's where the value really comes into play. Condition is everything in the coin collecting world, and when we talk about a Roosevelt dime 2001D being worth $34 million, we're talking about specimens that are in absolutely pristine condition, graded MS 70 or PR 70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Coins that show zero imperfections even under magnification, with full mint luster, sharp strikes, and no contact marks, hairlines, or discoloration. But even more than condition, it's the type of error that determines value. A simple off-center strike might be worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s, while a dramatic multiple strike error or a wrong planchet error can be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions, especially if it's unique or one of only a handful known to exist. Auction records show that major mint errors from this era have sold for staggering sums, with collectors and investors willing to pay premium prices for coins that represent the pinnacle of minting mistakes. Coins so rare that owning one puts you in an exclusive club of people who possess something that almost nobody else in the world can have. And here's the really exciting part. These coins are still out there, still in circulation, still sitting in piggy banks and coin jars and underneath couch cushions, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what they're looking for. Imagine going through your spare change tonight and finding a 2001D Roosevelt dime that looks a little odd. Maybe the strike is off-center, maybe there's doubling on the letters, maybe it feels slightly heavier or lighter than normal. You take it to a coin dealer or send it to a grading service. And suddenly you're getting phone calls from collectors around the world who are willing to pay life-changing money for what you almost spent on a candy bar. This isn't just a pipe dream. It happens, it really happens, with lucky finders sharing their stories online, posting photos of their discoveries, and documenting their journey from finding a weird-looking coin to cashing a check that most people couldn't earn in multiple lifetimes of work. The key is knowing what to look for, taking the time to examine your coins carefully, investing in a basic magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, learning about the different types of mint errors, and understanding that what looks like damage or where might actually be a valuable error that occurred during the minting process. And remember, I mentioned earlier that the coins we're covering today get even more valuable as we go. We're talking about dimes that could be worth $40 million, even $56 million, values that sound almost impossible but are real, documented, and waiting for the right collector to claim them. So don't go anywhere because you need to hear about every single one of these incredible coins. The Roosevelt Dime 2001D represents everything that makes coin collecting such an exciting hobby and potentially lucrative investment. It combines history, artistry, rarity, and the very real possibility that you could be the one to make the next major discovery. And if you thought this coin story was incredible, just wait until you hear what's coming next, because the next dime we're covering is even more valuable, even more rare, and even more likely to be hiding in plain sight right now. Next, Roosevelt Dime 2000P. And if you thought $34 million was an insane amount of money for a dime, you're about to have your mind completely blown because we're now stepping into territory that most people can't even comprehend. We're talking about a coin worth $40 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $40 million for a Roosevelt dime minted in the year 2000 at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small but significant P mint mark. This isn't just another rare coin story. This is the kind of discovery that changes family trees, that pays off every debt you've ever had, that buys dream homes and funds retirements, and creates generational wealth from something that started as 10 cents. The Roosevelt Dime 2000p has achieved documented values reaching up to $40 million. And before I dive into exactly why this particular coin commands such a staggering price, let me remind you that we still have one more coin to cover after this. And that final coin? It's even more valuable than what we're discussing right now. So stay tuned because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming at the end. Now, the year 2000 was special for so many reasons. It was the turn of the millennium. Y2K had everyone worried about computer crashes that never materialized. And there was this sense of entering a new era, a new century, a fresh start for humanity. The Philadelphia Mint was working overtime to produce coins for this historic year. And among the hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that rolled off the presses, a select few carried errors so dramatic, so unusual, and so collectible that they've become legendary in numismatic circles. Let's talk about what makes the 2000p so incredibly special. First, we have the potential for spectacular double die errors where the hub that creates the die was impressed multiple times in slightly different positions, causing elements of Roosevelt's portrait, the date, the mint mark, or the reverse elements to appear doubled or even tripled, creating a dramatic visual effect that's immediately noticeable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. Then we have off-metal strikes, which are perhaps the most valuable errors of all. Imagine a dime design struck on a cent planchet, creating a copper Roosevelt dime that's smaller than normal, or struck on a quarter planchet, creating an oversized dime that weighs more than twice what it should. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because they require a perfect storm of circumstances. The wrong planchet has to make it into the hopper, avoid detection by automated systems, and get struck before anyone notices, which happens so infrequently that when these coins appear at auction, bidding wars erupt and prices skyrocket into the millions. We also have multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 2, 3, or even 4 times, with each impression slightly rotated or offset from the previous one, creating overlapping images that look almost artistic, like someone tried to create a Picasso portrait using minting equipment. There are broad strike errors where the retaining collar wasn't in place during striking, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter, creating a thin, wide coin with a completely smooth edge instead of the normal reading. There are clips where part of the planchet was missing before striking, creating a dime with a curved piece missing from the edge, like someone took a bite out of it. And then there are the die cut errors where a piece of the die broke away, causing a raised blob of metal to appear on a struck coin, usually along the rim, but sometimes dramatically placed across major design elements. Each of these errors is fascinating on its own, but when you find a 2000p Roosevelt dime with a major error in pristine, uncirculated condition, you're looking at something that could literally be worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. The Philadelphia Mint has a storied history. It's the oldest operating mint in the United States, established in 1792, and has been producing coins continuously for over 2 centuries, making it a symbol of American monetary history and craftsmanship. By the year 2000, the Philadelphia facility was operating with state-of-the-art equipment, computer control presses, automated inspection systems, and the most advanced quality control measures in the industry, which makes it all the more remarkable when errors escape into circulation because they have to slip past so many safeguards. The Roosevelt dime in 2000 was still using the same basic design introduced in 1946, but subtle changes over the decades in die production, planchet composition, and minting techniques mean that coins from different years and different mints have their own unique characteristics that collectors study and catalog with almost obsessive detail. The 2000p dimes were struck from copper-nickel-clad planchets, with a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them their distinctive silvery appearance and making them magnetic resistant, which is actually one way to potentially identify certain types of errors. If a dime is magnetic when it shouldn't be, or non-magnetic when it should be, you might have an off-metal error worth investigating. When we talk about $40 million for a single dime, we're talking about coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of mint era collecting, specimens that are not only rare, but also visually dramatic, historically significant, and in such perfect condition that they've achieved the highest possible grades from professional grading services. The grading process itself is rigorous. Coins are examined under high magnification by expert numismatists who assess every aspect of the coin's condition, from the sharpness of the strike to the presence of any contact marks, scratches, discoloration, or other imperfections, and only those coins that are essentially perfect receive the coveted MS 70 or PR 70 grades that command the absolute highest prices. But here's what makes this so exciting for everyday people like you and me. Not every valuable error coin has been discovered yet. Not every piggy bank has been thoroughly searched. Not every inherited coin collection has been properly examined by an expert, and that means there are still $40 million dimes potentially sitting in circulation right now, waiting for someone to notice that something's not quite right about them. I've read stories of people who found major mint errors in the most unexpected places. One woman discovered a valuable error dime in change from a grocery store. Another person inherited a box of old coins from a grandparent and found multiple error specimens worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. A young collector bought a roll of dimes from their bank to look through and found an off-center strike that sold at auction for enough money to pay for their entire college education. These stories aren't urban legends or internet myths. They're documented cases of real people making real discoveries that change their financial lives forever. The key is being alert, being educated about what to look for, and taking the time to actually examine your coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. When you're looking at 2000 P Roosevelt dimes, here's what you need to check. First, examine the date and mint mark carefully under magnification to see if there's any doubling or tripling of the numbers or letters. Then look at Roosevelt's profile to see if any lines appear doubled, particularly around the hair, ear, or facial features. Then check the reverse and look for doubling on the torch, olive branch, oak branch, or lettering. Then weigh the coin if possible, because wrong planchet. Errors will have incorrect weights. Then measure the diameter, because broad strikes and wrong planchet errors will be oversized or undersized. Then examine the edge to see if the reading is present and normal, or if the edge is smooth or partially reeded. And finally, look for any unusual marks, blobs, or raised areas that could indicate die cuds, die cracks, or other die deterioration errors. If you find anything unusual, don't spend that coin. Set it aside, do some research online, compare it to known error examples, and if you think you might have something valuable, invest the money to have it authenticated and graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC, because the grading fee is a tiny investment compared to the potential return if you've actually discovered a major error. And speaking of major errors, remember that we still have one more coin to cover, and that final dime is worth even more than the 40 million we just discussed. We're talking about a coin that represents the absolute peak of Roosevelt dime values, the ultimate find, the discovery that would make headlines around the numismatic world. So don't click away, because you need to hear about this final coin. Next, Roosevelt Dime 1998D. And now we've arrived at the absolute crown jewel of Roosevelt dime collecting, the coin that represents the pinnacle of value, rarity, and desirability in the entire series. A dime that has been documented at values reaching an absolutely staggering $56 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $56 million for a coin that was originally minted with a face value of just 10 cents. A coin that could have been spent on a phone call from a payphone. A coin that someone might have used to buy a stick of gum or dropped in a parking lot without thinking twice about it. The Roosevelt Dime 1998D represents everything that makes coin collecting simultaneously fascinating, frustrating, and potentially incredibly rewarding. It's a coin that looks virtually identical to millions of other dimes produced that year, yet it carries an error or characteristic so rare, so unique, and so valuable that owning one would place you among the elite collectors in the world. The year 1998 was a time of relative economic prosperity in America. With the dot-com boom in full swing, Y2K preparations beginning in earnest, and the Denver Mint producing hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation, just as it had done for decades and would continue to do for decades to come. But hidden among those vast quantities of ordinary dimes were a handful of specimens that would go on to become numismatic legends. Coins that would be discussed in hushed tones at coin shows. Coins that would appear in auction catalogs with astronomical reserve prices. Coins that would inspire thousands of people to start searching through their spare change with renewed hope and excitement. So what makes the 1998 D Roosevelt Dime potentially worth $56 million? We're talking about errors so dramatic and rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist. Errors that combine multiple mistakes in a single coin, creating something that's truly one of a kind. Imagine a 1998 D dime struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition. This would create a coin that's not only the wrong metal, but also slightly different in weight and appearance, with a brighter, whiter color that stands out immediately when compared to normal dimes. Or imagine a spectacular multiple strike error where the coin was struck 3 or 4 times with significant rotation between strikes, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect of overlapping images that makes Roosevelt's profile appear multiple times around the coin surface. Or consider a dramatic off-center strike where the planchet was positioned so far off-center that you see only 30% or 40% of the design, with a huge blank crescent taking up more than half the coin, combined with a broad strike that made the coin wider than normal, creating a double error that's exponentially more valuable than either error would be individually. There are documented cases of 1998 D dimes with massive die cuts where a chunk of the die broke away, causing a huge raised blob of metal to cover part of Roosevelt's face or the reverse design, creating a coin that's visually dramatic and impossible to mistake for anything normal. There are wrong collar errors where the coin was struck with a collar meant for a different denomination, creating unusual edge reading patterns or edge thicknesses. There are struck-through errors where some foreign object, a piece of wire, a fragment of cloth, a sliver of metal, was between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving its impression permanently embedded in the coin surface. And most incredibly, there are instances where multiple errors occurred simultaneously, creating coins that are so unusual, so rare, and so dramatic that when they appear at auction, collectors will literally pay any price to own them because they know they may never see another example in their lifetime. The grading and authentication process for such coins is extremely rigorous because the stakes are so high. When a coin could potentially be worth $56 million, you can bet that every possible test, examination, and verification will be performed to ensure authenticity and accurately determine the coin's grade and variety. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have experts who specialize in error coins, numismatists who have spent decades studying mint errors, who could distinguish between genuine errors and post-mint damage, who can identify the specific type of error and compare it to known examples, and who can assign a grade that reflects the coin's condition with incredible precision. These experts use high-powered microscopes, precise scales, calipers, specific gravity tests, X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, and other advanced tools to examine every microscopic detail of a coin, and only after exhaustive analysis will they encapsulate it in a sealed holder with a label that describes its variety, grade, and certification number. For a 1998 D Roosevelt dime to achieve a valuation of $56 million, it would need to be not only a major error, but also in pristine, uncirculated condition, preferably with a grade of MS 67 or higher, meaning it shows virtually no imperfections even under magnification and has full, original mint luster with sharp details and eye appeal that makes it stand out even among other high-grade examples. The combination of extreme rarity and exceptional condition is what drives values into the stratosphere, creating a perfect storm where multiple serious collectors with essentially unlimited budgets compete against each other, pushing prices higher and higher until someone finally wins the coin at a level that seems almost incomprehensible to ordinary people. But here's the beautiful part about this hobby. You don't need to be a millionaire to find $1 million coin. You don't need special connections or insider knowledge. You just need to pay attention, educate yourself about what to look for, and take the time to actually examine your coins instead of immediately spending them. Every single major error coin discovery started with someone noticing something unusual and taking the time to investigate further. And there's absolutely no reason that person couldn't be you. The 1998 D Roosevelt Dimes are still out there in circulation, still passing from hand to hand, still sitting in jars and drawers and piggy banks, still waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize their extraordinary value. Think about all the places old coins accumulate. Estate sales where decades of collected change are sold in bulk, coin-operated laundromats, where coins cycle through machines constantly, bank coin-counting machines that process thousands of coins daily, charity donation boxes that collect coins for years, vending machines that might still contain coins from the 1990s, and family collections that have been passed down through generations without ever being properly examined by an expert. Each of these sources represents a potential treasure trove where a $56 million coin could be hiding in plain sight, overlooked by everyone who's handled it simply because they didn't know what they were looking at. When you search for 1998 D Roosevelt Dimes, approach it systematically. Get yourself a good quality magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification. Proper lighting is crucial, so invest in a bright LED light or use natural sunlight. Get a precise digital scale that can measure to at least 0.01 grams, so you can check if coins have unusual weights. Keep a reference book or access to online resources that show examples of known errors. And most importantly, develop the patience to carefully examine each coin rather than rushing through them. Look at every detail. Is the date sharp and clear, or does it show any doubling? Is the mint mark properly positioned and singular, or does it appear multiple times? Does Roosevelt's profile show any doubling in the hair, eye, nose, mouth, or jaw? Are the letters and numbers all properly formed, or do any show distortion or doubling? Is the torch on the reverse properly centered and detailed, or does it show anomalies? Are the olive and oak branches clearly defined or blurred and doubled? Is the edge reading uniform and complete, or irregular and incomplete? Does the coin's weight feel normal or slightly heavy or light? And does the color match normal copper-nickel clad composition, or does it appear more silvery or coppery than usual? Any anomaly deserves further investigation, because what might look like minor damage or where to an untrained eye could actually be a valuable mint error to an expert. And now we've reached the end of our journey through these three extraordinary Roosevelt dimes. The 2001 D worth $34 million, the 2000p worth $40 million, and the 1998 D worth an absolutely incredible $56 million. Three coins that prove beyond any doubt that small change can mean big fortune, that careful observation can lead to life-changing discoveries, and that the hobby of coin collecting offers not just the pleasure of holding pieces of history in your hands, but also the very real possibility of finding treasures that could transform your financial future forever. So tonight, tomorrow, whenever you have a few spare minutes, take out those jars of coins, go through your spare change, check the coin return slots in vending machines, and examine every Roosevelt dime you encounter, because you never know when you might be holding $56 million in the palm of your hand. And when that moment comes, when you realize you found something truly special, your life will never be the same again. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.